A group of outlaws abducts a teenager, and her brother goes to great lengths despite his limited capabilities to save his sister, while unraveling the unimaginable horrors surrounding the incident. In a slum area in Mexico City, Adriana celebrates her 13th birthday with her friends and family. Jorge, her brother, lovingly greets and gifts her with a bike. Their mother asks where he got it and warily comments about his friends. The son defends them by saying they helped him find a job as a tour guide. Jorge bids goodbye to Adriana and promises to bring her to Zocalo. Their mom warns that it's a dangerous place filled with foreigners, so he better return the bike and take care of his sister. The son argues that the bike is for his sister to keep, and the mother comments that he wouldn't be able to answer if his father is here. Jorge's mood turns sour as he declares that their father is gone. He kisses his mother goodbye before leaving with his friends, and the matriarch demands Adriana not to ride her bike, which displeases the daughter. In a plane, a young woman named Veronica practices her English, and their agency's personnel, Irina, commends her. The plane lands, and Irina ushers them outside the airport. The woman introduces them to Vadim, the agency head, and Manuel, their escort to Los Angeles. Irina takes their passports, so Veronica's friend comments that something doesn't seem right. Veronica inquires about their passport, but the woman's answer seems suspicious. Before she knows it, Irina tightly grabs her arm while threatening her that they know her family's whereabouts. Vadim and Manuel instantly subdue Veronica and put her in the vehicle while her friend frantically runs away. Unfortunately, she's hit by a car and the culprit escapes with her captive. Meanwhile, Jorge targets a foreign tourist to show a pamphlet, but the man refuses. The tour guide convinces him to look, and the foreigner sees different women in their birthday suits. Jorge leads them to a secluded area where his two friends, Alejandro and Cabron, threaten the tourist with guns. The man begs for his life and they take his things before escaping. The friends party all night, enjoying what they get from their victims. The following day, Adriana writes a card to her brother and sneaks out to ride her bike, unaware that a car is following her. Once she notices, she turns to an alley to lose the car, but she's intercepted and captured. Moments later, Alejandro comments about a boy riding a girl's bike in a nearby street. Jorge recognizes the bike and charges at the boy. The friends gang up on him, so the frightened boy tells them he found the bike on the street. They rush to the location, and Jorge finds the card Adriana made for him. He notices a woman sneakily watching from her window, so he knocks on her door to ask what happened, but the woman drives them away. Alejandro suggests speaking with Don Victor, their boss. The leader tells them that an international gang probably took her to sell to foreigners globally. Jorge asks for his help and confidently says his friends have his back, but Alejandro and Cabron become afraid upon learning the enemy's identity. The brother goes berserk, and Don Victor calms him down by informing him about the New Jersey route near the airport that the gang has been using to pass captives along in exchange for money. Meanwhile, Vadim and Manuel bring Veronica to a safe house where Adriana and the other captives are. Veronica begs for her safety, but Vadim rips her son's photo in front of her to threaten her. The man hits her, and the other captives scamper to the corner while Manuel turns on the camera. He faces the wall as he knows what Vadim will do next. As Vadim takes her womanhood, Veronica recalls how she applied to the agency to have a chance to bring her son to America, as the staff explained that Mexico is the easiest way to get to Los Angeles. She remembers giving them her mom's address and realizes the agency's real intention in getting that information. Meanwhile, Jorge is dropped off by his friends at the location Don Victor suggested, discovering the long queue of women for clients to choose from. Manuel carefully gives the captives some pills in the safe house, saying it lessened their pain. Veronica pretends to take it but spits it out as the man leaves. Adriana approaches her to return the ripped photo, and they discover they can only speak a little English. The younger captive sobs in agony as she clasps her religious necklace, and Veronica finally moves from the bed, asking her if she believes in it. Adriana tells her that she has fate and this will help her brother find her. That evening, Jorge tirelessly looks for his sister, unaware that the captives are behind him. When he finally notices them getting transported into a truck, he discreetly follows them. Fortunately, his friends are in the area, so he takes their car and tails the truck. Meanwhile, the captives remain weak aside from Veronica, so she attends to the others along the way. When they stop, they overhear that the pills make them vulnerable. The truck door opens and the captives become relieved upon seeing the police, but it's short-lived as they realize they are working with the gang. Manuel lets the cop choose and he picks Veronica. The woman urges Adriana to get out as the man prepares to enter the vehicle to satisfy his worldly desires. Simultaneously, Jorge hides behind the boulders to observe, and he sees how Manuel locks the truck and commands the captives to change clothes. He also bribes the cop to process their fake IDs. Jorge only watches in agony as Manuel threatens Adriana to pose for photos. Afterward, the truck moves again and the brother tails it. Unfortunately, his car runs out of gas, so he has no choice but to chase after them on foot. Moments later, Jorge finds himself in an isolated slum community with the truck nowhere in sight. Meanwhile, the captives remain in another safe house where Adriana offers food to Veronica, who refuses to eat. Manuel commands her to take some food, but he doesn't touch or hit her when she declines. On the other hand, Jorge drops by a store to chug water and call his mom, but he has no heart to tell her the truth, so he drops the call. Fortunately, he spots the truck from the window and renews his determination. Late that night, Jorge sneaks into the safe house but finds it empty. A car soon arrives and a foreign man inspects the area, seeing numerous drawings of the captives while Jorge manages to head out. Meanwhile, Manuel and the captives arrive by the riverbank. He tells them it's the border and instructs them to cross it. They succeed in the mission, but the border patrol arrives, and Manuel threatens his companions to remain silent. On the other hand, the foreign stranger named Ray returns to his hotel and calls his wife, Patty, to inform her of his whereabouts. He gloomily takes an old photo of his daughter and stares at it. The following day, Ray drives around the border, passing by the immigration holding facility where the outlaws and the captives are staying. He presents his cop badge at the checkpoints for better accessibility. Meanwhile, Adriana and the others are watched like a hawk by Manuel. Veronica grabs a chance to inform a guard about their abduction, but he doesn't believe her. Simultaneously, a high school student arrives at the facility for community service, and a female student approaches Adriana to practice her Spanish while handing her a fashion magazine. Concurrently, Ray stops by a store and notices movements from his trunk, and upon opening it, Jorge jumps out. Ray subdues him and puts him in the car to send him to the cops. However, Jorge explains the situation and asks Ray to help since he's a cop. He ignores the youngster, but upon hearing about the safe house, he finally believes the story. Meanwhile, Manuel and his accomplice escape with the captives as they continue their journey to cross the border. Ironically, Manuel kneels to pray after seeing a Station of the Cross which Veronica finds hypocritical. On the other hand, Ray helps Jorge to report the abduction, but the persistent brother escapes. The cop follows him and convinces him that he can help him get to Jersey. At the same time, Manuel and the captives cross the border, and another accomplice named Alex criticizes them for moving in broad daylight. Manuel threatens him by snatching his gun, and they continue to their destination. Meanwhile, Jorge and Ray get to know each other. The tour guide probes about the cops' mission in the safe house, but Ray vaguely answers that it's private. After some time, the outlaws stop in a meadow where clients wait for goods the gang supplies. Manuel takes Adriana this time despite Veronica's pleas. An older man chooses Adriana and they walk into the meadow. She witnesses how captives like her become prey for their clients as the tall grass covers the horrors they face. The client stops in an area and starts the timer as Adriana's innocence is taken. They resume their journey like nothing happened until Alex injects medicine into their male companion. On the other hand, Ray sends Jorge to clean himself up. He calls Patty and his wife informs him that their pet cat was put to sleep by the vet. The mourning woman blames him for being absent when she needs him, so she cuts the call. Jorge arrives and asks questions about him, discovering they have no child and treats the cat as theirs instead. While the tour guide orders food, Ray notices a man and Adriana's male companion in the restaurant who seem to be acting strange. They leave the establishment and Jorge recognizes his sister's companion's face. He chases them but loses track of his target. A cop arrives to question his behavior, but Ray fortunately comes, pretending to be his father. Jorge explains the situation and they spot the man and the captive. Ray corners the man in the bathroom and he instructs the aggressive Jorge to escort Adriana's companion outside. Soon, police arrive to rescue the captive and Ray shares that they could have a possible lead. Veronica comforts the crying Adriana in another safe house as she recalls the horrors she's encountered. Alex barges in to distribute the pills, and Veronica fails to refuse taking one this time due to the man's aggressiveness. Concurrently, Ray opens a website he got from the man earlier and finds the secret page where the gang posts their captives for bidding. The cop intends to be discreet, but Jorge is already behind him. He identifies Adriana, whose name is changed to Maria. The brother swears that he'll make those people pay for what they've done to his sister. Ray gives their lead and site password to a trusted friend to investigate further. He lets Jorge drive the car as they journey to the bidding location they discovered. The following day, in the safe house, Manuel receives a call for tomorrow's auction, with only Veronica and Adriana in their custody. The older captive pretends to be asleep while listening intently to any information she can use. They proceed to their destination as Veronica becomes more anxious about the unknown. Meanwhile, Jorge starts to become fond of Ray. The outlaws stop by for a toilet break and the captives grab the chance to run away. They reach the main street despite being pursued, and they happily hug each other after being surrounded by many people due to a parade. Veronica sees a payphone and instructs Adriana to go with the police as she calls her mom. She hurriedly tells her that something went wrong and asks about her son, but her mom informs her that people from the agency took him. Adriana approaches her as she becomes hysterical, but their pursuers suddenly come and capture them again. They stop at an isolated place and Manuel drags Veronica outside to punish her. However, the hopeless woman stares at the sunset and jumps off the cliff, surprising everyone. The journey to New Jersey continues and Adriana can only fix the ripped picture of Veronica's son. When morning comes, they reach their target city just like Ray and Jorge. Manuel brings Adriana to another house where Laura, another accomplice, waits. She mocks the escort for losing the goods and prepares the captive for the auction. On the other hand, Ray checks into a hotel with Jorge to let him rest. Then he goes to the authorities to inform them about Adriana's auction in a few hours. However, his superior decides not to do anything since there's only one girl left. Ray mocks him in disappointment as the decision turns final. He returns to the hotel and Jorge overhears him asking Patty to send him their savings. The wife asks if he has found his daughter and he affirms it, so Patty tells him to bring her home. Ray finally confesses to Jorge that he had an affair. The mistress told him the baby wasn't his and went with another man. Patty accepted him again, and only recently did he discover from the mistress's letter that he was the child's birth father. Unfortunately, he learned that his former lover sold her child since she was a junkie, and he's been looking for his daughter ever since. Hours later, in Laura's house, Adriana prays that if ever she gets sold, she hopes the man is kind. Meanwhile, the auction starts and her brother, with the help of Ray, joins the bidding. The price increases rapidly and Jorge's hands shake while his tears fall as he mumbles prayers to let them win the bid. Unfortunately, two other bidders are determined to win Adriana, so Ray tells him to raise the bid to the highest and wait 5 seconds before inputting the price. As Jorge does, the page loads and their username is granted to them, the highest bidder. Laura calls him and they jot down the address to pick up Adriana. Ray drives to the location and Manuel meets him to get the money, but Adriana is nowhere to be found. The outlaw tells him to go with him to another site, and Ray complies while secretly opening the trunk of his car where Jorge is hiding. Manuel drives away and Jorge tails them. Soon, Ray and the outlaw arrive at Laura's house. The cop finally sees Adriana, and Laura converses with him while Manuel counts the money. The woman tells the captive to sit beside her owner. Then, Laura tells Ray he seems like a cop, so Manuel inspects him for a weapon. Ray denies the allegation, so Laura demands him to take Adriana's innocence in the house since that'd be the greatest proof. The captive holds back her tears, and Ray requests a private room. Laura demands to see blood on the sheets, and Manuel locks them in. Once alone, Ray explains that he's Jorge's friend and begins scanning the room for an exit. Adriana understands the situation and goes to the bathroom for the blood. Meanwhile, Jorge waits anxiously in the car nearby. Laura tells Manuel she doesn't trust the stranger and commands him to check on them. Adriana whimpers in the bathroom and heads out with blood on her hands. She wipes it on the bedsheet, but Manuel suddenly opens the door, witnessing the act. He stares at the captive before turning around, leaving the door ajar. Adriana approaches him and tells him it's not too late to make it up for Veronica. She gently holds his hand and the man becomes teary-eyed as he slowly walks away. Laura probes him about the two and Manuel proclaims the deed is done. The woman contentedly smiles and soon Ray and Adriana head downstairs. Laura instructs Manuel to drive them back to his car, unaware that Jorge is striding to the house with a crowbar. He hides behind the bushes as he awaits to attack. Manuel, Ray, and Adriana step out, but just as the captive breathes a sigh of relief, the cop puts his jacket on her, making Laura comment that he's such a nice father. Ray turns to glance at her, but Jorge suddenly charges at Manuel and hits him on the head. The angry brother attacks Manuel repeatedly, and the cop reminds Jorge to stop. Laura immediately pulls the gun and points it at Ray while Jorge grabs his sister to safety. Sirens blare in the vicinity as SWAT surrounds the area, cornering Laura. Ray glances at her again as she crouches on the floor. Hank, Ray's friend from the bureau, reassures him that he'll take over. The cop happily watches the siblings reunite, and the police discover a secret room in the house where other captives are hidden. Ray gives final reminders to Jorge as they bid goodbye, and Adriana gives her necklace to her savior. The man hands his new friend the money he used to pay for Adriana's bid, but Jorge discreetly returns the envelope in Ray's car. Adriana cries as she sees the captives being rescued, and Ray reminds Jorge to take care of himself and stay out of trouble. Soon, the siblings ride a plane home and have a taxi bring them to the church, where they know their mother is praying. Jorge urges Adriana to go in, and he turns around. The mother shrieks in relief upon seeing her daughter, and they lovingly hug each other. Adriana glances at the entrance and finds her brother gone. Meanwhile, Ray drives home to Patty and discovers the money that Jorge returned. He smiles in disbelief and glances at the cat he brought with him. Sometime after, Vadim lovingly bids his family goodbye as he heads out, unaware that Jorge is resentfully staring at him. The young man strides towards him and stabs him in the back. Jorge leaves his body in the middle of the street, but he stares back without remorse, even upon hearing Vadim's son calling his father agonizingly.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.